You know, folks, I've been wanting to kind of talk about this a little bit, kind of do a video, because I know a lot of people have done it and have done something similar, but I thought I'd probably give my own thoughts, unbiased thoughts, as best I can on basically on why John Cena is portrayed the way he is. You know, I know a lot of people. I'll say this. Basically, as they talk about on TV, and this is the obvious truth, the polarizing of who John Cena is to the fans is really unique. And I know some people might argue this and say it's different, but it's almost like a 50-50 reaction, you know, at times, depending on where he's at, what town he's in, you know, who the majority of the audience is. It's sort of a 50-50 deal. Now, there is no doubt that at times, 75% of the audience that doesn't like him is going to be the strong majority to maybe 25% of the audience that does. It's kind of like a polarizing thing when you take a look at someone like Seth Rollins, who's being portrayed as this edge-like heel, edge-like opportunist heel, and yet you have some fans that like him, and you got a majority of fans that don't like him. So, and at times it's kind of polarizing because you don't know who they're for, because you don't know whether they're cheering him or they're booing him, because it's back and forth. And that's the same with John Cena. But I think the reason people don't like John Cena at times isn't just because, as some people would put it, he's a problem that has to be solved. But he's always constantly in some sort of top feud. He's in some kind of constant title picture, if you will, if not the WWE World title picture. And one of the other major things, and this is one thing that I think Jeff Siegel, the Schleg Daddy at OTRS Central, said, is it seems that in the past 2 years, you'll take an up-and-coming superstar like recently Rusev, and of course the year before someone like Bray Wyatt, and it could be the middle of the card, it'd be the third to last match on the card, which I think it was at WrestleMania this year. You could take these up-and-comers, and all of a sudden, in the first match against John Cena, or in the case of Rusev, the second match, feed him to John Cena, the John Cena monster, some people call him, and cause them to lose a lot of momentum. You know, a lot of people will say, though, in defense, well, even if they lose to John Cena, they're not going to lose momentum. It's going to help them, because at least they have a victory. That is true, but, you know, you can't argue with people that think otherwise. I mean, you take a look at Bray Wyatt. Some people felt that what he did with John Cena derailed him. I could say it did, but I don't really think it did. I think in a sense, hold on a second. I think in a sense it didn't really derail Bray. Trying to get my dog in. But like I said, I think in a sense it didn't really derail Bray. I think it was more along the lines of, and I know this, I think it was more along the lines, and I think this may sound like an excuse to some people, I think it was the creative staff, period. I really do. I really think it was the creative staff, in reality, that caused Bray to be derailed, because they didn't really have nothing planned for Bray afterwards until Jericho came around. Once Jericho came back, it's like, okay, let's give him to Bray, because apparently they had some kind of short program that led into one match down in NXT. You know, it led to that. And yet, until Jericho came back, they didn't really have nothing. So you can't really blame John Cena. You have to blame the creative staff. They didn't know what to do with Bray. Because he's a character in Bray Wyatt that's borderline PG-13 R rating. He's a guy that, if he had been in the Attitude Era, would be in the same field as a Mick Foley, or Terry Funk. Here's a guy, and even an Undertaker, which he did who he did face recently at WrestleMania. You know, that was my dog. But here's a guy that would be put into situations in matches that you don't see now normally anymore, except for maybe at Extreme Rules. You don't see Bray Wyatt. You wouldn't see Bray Wyatt. I mean, if Bray Wyatt was, you know, his character was around in the Attitude Era, or even the Ruthless Aggression Era, you would have seen a guy going into matches where he would fall on thumbtacks. He'd be probably set on fire, or a bit of his clothing would be on fire. You see a guy that would be whiplashed into barbed wire. Because that's how his character is portrayed. But because of the fact that he's a borderline character where, yeah, you can get away with certain stuff with him, but some stuff you can't. You know, it's hard for the creative staff to come up with anything. And if anybody deserves to blame, it's them, because they should have stuff lined up for not just Bray, but every superstar and diva there is, so at least they have something to do and they're not lost in the shuffle. So if you want to blame anybody, don't blame John as much as it sounds like I'm defending him. No. Blame the creative staff. Put the blame on the creative staff if Rusev doesn't go anywhere after his thing with John Cena. Blame them. Don't blame John. Okay? It's kind of like if you were to say, oh, Bray Wyatt against Daniel Bryan. If Daniel Bryan beat Bray Wyatt in a match for the Intercontinental Championship, beat him, retained his title, had a lengthy feud with him over it, would you sit there and say, oh, it's going to derail Bray? Of course not. You would say, oh, it's going to elevate Bray. And you see, that's what makes a character like John Cena polarizing. Because just because he's not the constant catch-on-cans wrestler that you see in Ring of Honor or CZW or Evolve or Dragon Gate, just because he's not that kind of a guy, you think he's going to derail someone. But yet when you look at someone like, let's say, a Daniel Bryan, you think he's going to be okay. You think he's going to be fine. And that's what makes people like John Cena polarizing. Because some will say, hey, he's not going to lose momentum if he loses to John. No. It would be the exact opposite. He's going to gain momentum. Because at least it's going to say in the record books, if you want to believe those, that he has a victory over John Cena. Same with Rusev. He has a victory over John Cena. It's going to say that. And they've both looked strong in their matches. The only thing, like I've said, that makes John Cena so polarizing to some fans is because of the fact he's always in some kind of top-profile match. And sometimes he's the one that, in their eyes, ends up derailing some of the up-and-coming stars. And again, it's not necessarily all his fault. It's the creative staff. But again, this is what makes him such a polarizing character, because they don't really want to blame the people in the back that are writing this stuff. They want to blame the person that's constantly shoved in their faces. And again, I'm not saying this because I'm a John Cena fan. You know, I like John Cena, and yes, I am a fan, but I'm not saying this because I'm a true, legit fan. I'm a fan out of respect. And look, I do agree, John Cena being a 15-time world champion, that's enough. And if they do give it to him, okay, that's the one thing I'm afraid that they might do. Okay? And I'll get to that in a moment. But you see, you can't. But first of all, when it comes to the guys like Bray and Rusev being in situations that they're in, it isn't always because of him. It's because of the fact that there is no creative direction for them. And the creative staff should have something planned for them all the time, just like every other diva and superstar. You know, that's what they should do. They can't just say, oh, they can't just sit on their butts and go like, duh, where do we put Bray Wyatt now? Duh, where do we put Rusev now? Duh, I can't think. Oh, let's put him in Java City. That's basically it. It's basically it. You can't blame someone. It's like I mentioned earlier. You can't. It's like I mentioned earlier. With Daniel Bryan, you'd be completely like, oh, they'll be fine. They'll be okay. They'll be cool. You can't blame someone like, Daniel Bryan if that was the exact opposite, or someone like a Brock Lesnar, or Roman Reigns. You can't blame them. All because they're not the catch cans wrestler you want. Because if they were the catch cans wrestler you wanted, they wouldn't be them losing to someone like a Daniel Bryan, a Seth Rollins, and if he was still here, CM Punk, you guys would be like, oh, they'll be great, they'll be fine, they're going to be elevated to the top. And it's all because you don't want to put them in the same category as someone like a John Cena. You don't want to do that because John Cena is such a polarizing character to you. You don't know whether you want to cheer him or boo him. Now, again, I'm not saying John Cena isn't part of the problem in a sense. Him always constantly being in the title picture, which, believe it or not, whether you want to know this or not, he's going to be in the title picture again this year. Guarantee on that. Because it seems they can't go a year without putting the strap back on John Cena, right? So he's going to get it this year, believe it or not. You're going to see a report about that soon. But him being constantly in the title picture, or at least when he does get in the title picture, yeah, that does create a problem. It's because you got this whole roster of superstars, up-and-coming stars, that you could put the strap on, and yet you decide, hey, let's put on John Cena instead. And why? Because he's more known, his face is all over the place, you'd rather have it on him. And again, this is what pisses fans off. This is what pisses them off. Because you're constantly having John in that title picture. And this to me is the main reason. This to me is the main reason why John Cena is so polarized by fans. Why you have a lot of fans chanting, Cena sucks. This is why you have it. This is why you have that reasoning. Why he's such a polarizing figure. Why he's such a controversial figure. It's due to the fact that he's always placed in the main event. Or it seems that whatever program he's in seems to get more attention than anything else. Let's take a look at Seth Rollins and Randy Orton. They got a match coming up, maybe at Extreme Rules. Possibly going to be a three-way involving Roman Reigns. Maybe. Here's a match you think should get a lot of attention because it's got a lot of story behind it and everything. Here's what could happen, and this is the fear of a lot of people. Instead of that getting all the attention and all the focus on, instead, you're going to have Cena and Rusev and their program being focused on more so. Why? Because John Cena is the face of the company. And it's like I've said, him holding the United States title is going to elevate that probably beyond the status of the world title. That's what's going to happen. And again, I know some people don't want to hear that. They don't want to believe that. But you know what? That is what makes him such a controversial figure in the eyes of many. Here's a guy that could be in an upper mid card feud with seemingly what could be an upper mid card championship again. And yet, it'll be treated more importantly, more focused on than the world title main event picture. All because John Cena is the face of the company and he has the belt. Which is why he's such a controversial figure. Because it doesn't matter what program he's in, it doesn't matter what championship he could be holding, that championship will get more focused on, and his program involving that championship and said challenger will get more focused on, due to the fact that John Cena is the face of the company, and this is what makes him controversial. This is what makes him polarizing. This is what makes him disliked and hated by fans, by a certain group of fans, because of the fact that he's always in that picture. He's involved, he's always there's more focus put on him than anything else. That's the thing. That's the thing. and people don't like it. They hate it. They hate it with a passion. They really do. Now, like I said, this is one of the reasons why I believe, in my opinion, as much as we may not like to see it, John's going to get another run with the world title this year. You know it, I know it. We just don't know when, but I think we can assume the summer of this year, towards the fall of this year, is when that title reign is going to happen. That's right. The title reign is going to happen again. You know it. The 16th title is coming. And again, this is what makes it polarizing for the guy. This is what makes fans go against him, because of the fact that he's always on top. Even if he has, like I say, an upper mid-card championship in the United States title, that title is going to get more value and focus on than the world title. And you pretty much know that. Take a look at WrestleMania. That championship and his program with Rusev got more focus, even though it was the third to last match, got more focus on it than the WWE World Title match, despite how physical and brutal that match was. It got more focus on and more importance than the main event. In fact, it got more focus and more attention than even the cash-in. As great as that was, as great and nice as that was to see, it got more focus than Seth Rollins cashing in. It did. So, to try to answer the question, to try to figure this out, the reason John Cena is such a controversial and polarizing character is due to the fact that he's always constantly in that main event picture. No matter what it is. He's always more focused on his feud, his program with someone. Could be an upper mid-card feud, whatever. It'll still get more focus on. He'll still be looked at as the face. Now some people may say, well, they're trying to put Roman Reigns in that place. Yes, they're still trying to do that, but guess what? Even with Roman Reigns as the potential future face of this company, it's not going to happen. Because if they decide, okay, Seth, I mean, at the last minute, at WrestleMania of all places, they decide, okay, Seth, you're going to cash in, you're going to beat Roman, and you're going to become champion. It shows you that they've realized that Roman's not going to be the face of the company just yet. They're testing Seth out right now, seeing where he's going to go. And I guarantee you, before this year's out, John Cena's going to have the damn belt, and he'll either get it from Seth Rollins, he's either going to get it from Randy Orton, or he's going to end up getting it from a returning Brock Lesnar, or even a Roman Reigns. And you guys know that. You guys know that. So with that said, when one looks at it, there are many reasons why John's such a polarizing, controversial character. It's because of everything I've mentioned. But like I've said earlier, you cannot blame him for the derailment of several young up-and-coming stars. That's the one thing that we got to look at, we got to remember. We can't blame him for that. As much as we want to put the blame, we can't. It's got to be put more on the focus of that. The blame has to be put more on the creative staff than anything else. Because instead of doing their job, instead of focusing and saying, okay, let's put this person in a feud, let's put this person where they need to be, instead they're like, duh, what do we do next? And they need to stop doing that. They need to put the focus more on those young stars, give them strong performances, even in losing efforts, and say, these guys have proven themselves, they're the future. You don't constantly put the blame on John Cena, as much as you may not like the guy, as much as you may not like the fact that he's the face of the company, as much as you may not like the fact that he's been a 15-time champion with the possibility of number 16 just around the corner. Don't put the blame on him. Don't put the blame on him. Put the blame on the creative staff that either books him in these situations, or either doesn't have nothing planned for anybody else that goes against him and loses. Blame them, don't blame him. Yeah, you can hate the fact that he's always there, he's still the same guy, he's not going to change, he's not going to go heel, he's not going to do any of that. You know, you can hate that, you can hate all that,